Here on BBC One, Heart of the Matter. As the chairman of the Coal Board claims that the miners' strike is politically motivated, David Jessel joins the flying pickets of the Midlands to find out if there's more than jobs at stake.
Since 4 o'clock this morning, we've been on the road with, according to the headlines, the most hated men in Britain. Men accused of challenging the rule of law, defying democracy itself. As the miners' strike grows daily more bitter and divisive, we hear from the politicians, we hear from the union leaders, we hear from the men who want to carry on working. But what about the men at the centre of the controversy itself? The flying pickets. Conviction and commitment we admire when it's in the name of a principle we admire. But are we seeing commitment or bloody-mindedness, conviction or naked blackmail? And can the principle of the right to work ever justify denying other people their freedom to work? In the next 12 hours, in the next 35 minutes, these are the issues at the heart of the matter tonight.
If you close a pit, you close not just a job centre, you close a community. And this is what we're fighting for.
It's not just the picketing that's secondary. Has there ever been a dispute where so many of the issues and principles we'd put at the heart of the matter have seemed so incidental to the men involved? For us who work above the ground, public, politicians, journalists, it's about the rule of law, the role of the police, splits between the coalfields, splits among the miners, the future of the government, the future of the union, the daily changing tactics of the strike.
Because you're in the same area, aren't you? Yeah, how far is it?
But they came up from Kent to the Midlands to sleep rough, to live on coffee and chips, for the simple sake of work, they say. For Kent's flying pickets, everything else, that really is secondary. J.BRANNON, 29 years in the pits. He used to work at the coalface till ill health brought him up to a surface job. A.BELL, they call him Dinger, 15 years in the mines. J.CREWS, pit worker, union official, organiser, tactician of the group. I.FOY, an accident underground made him a surface worker too. J.CREWS, he's a development worker exploring new seams of coal.
We've got our own picket there, what we've had there.
P.O.DONNELL, 10 years a face worker, he's been offered £7,000 redundancy, he won't take it. Between them, close on 100 years of work with coal. 2 weeks ago, they came up from Kent to the unfamiliar territory of the Midlands to ask the men to strike. You don't really associate coal mining with Kent. It seems too mild a southern home county for anything as gritty as coal. The south coast is for gentlefolk, not militants. But at the southern end of the country, coal mining comes to the end of the line. Historically, miners came down to the mean thin seams of Kentish coal from the north, from Scotland, from Wales, as pit after pit closed down. After Kent, there's nowhere else to go.
We live in a mining village, which is part of a town. We all come from mining families. My father was Scottish, mother was Welsh, and they were driven down to Kent. I don't mean driven by car, I mean driven by force of looking for work. And we're fighting for our right to work there. There's plenty of coal in Kent, fine coal, really good coal, and I think, Charlie, your family's the same, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, Patsy's, I mean, it's the same area as what part of Scotland he comes from?
From Fife.
Yeah, the same area as my mother. My dad was from Newcastle. And I think what it is we've got nowhere else to go. In Kent, we've got 3 coal mines, Snowdon, Tilmston, Betsanger. We're from Betsanger. And, you know, it's a situation what we've been forced into. I mean, it's the last place I want to be is in Warwickshire. I want to be back home with wife and family, but it's something we've got to do. We've got to come up here and convince these men up here that we have got a good case to try and keep our pits open in our particular area.
Mining is all that we know in our village. The lads leave school, or when we were youngsters in the 60s, We left school at 15 and just signed on at the pit. That was our job because our forefathers done it. And it's just bred into you. And that's what we've...
Yeah, but just because it's always been done, it doesn't mean there's a right to go on doing
Well,
it
no,
forever.
no. I'll say it's in the blood because I left the pit. I left the pit to join the forces. I joined the forces and I moved about Manchester, Gravesend way, Rochester area. And I ended up 1972 back in Kent and back in the pit because it's there. It's a magnet to you because of the solidarity, the union, the comradeship within the villages that you live. We see them, don't we, Charlie, regular. They all drift back.
You know, I
They
mean,
all drift back.
Because why?
Because it's such a mucky job, it's such an awful job, you have to stick together because your fellow workman is the only friend you got. And I think that's why we're so close-knit. And I really sincerely believe that. And our families are so close-knit.
But you said it's a mucky, it's an awful job. I mean,
It is a mucky, awful job. I mean, we're sat around a table. We're normally working something like underneath this table. That's the kind of height. And a couple of lads take a couple of sandwiches to it, or butties, whatever they call them, and they have to sit where they're working and eat them there. And there's no toilet facilities, there's no washing facilities, there's, you know, none of your everyday, what you would call life. It's a mucky, awful job.
is that a job worth saving?
Any job's worth saving in 1984. Any job. Because we've got 4 million unemployed now. And if we give our jobs up, they're on about 22,000 this year. And next year it'll be even more. Any job's worth saving.
Any job's worth saving, but any means justified in fighting to save it. If it's a battle for your own community, what right do you have to press gang strangers to fight on your behalf? The pickets resent talk about battles and fights. They won't deny there has been violence on the picket line. But they're bitter about the emphasis that press and television place on violence, the talk of blackmail, intimidation, when the issue, they say, is one of principle.
and the principle is this. We're up here, right, to tell these lads in Warwickshire that they shouldn't even be considering crossing the picket line. The arguments are there. The principle is this, that no way should we have to go to these pits and ask them to support us. They know the score, but they're not being told the truth. Because the press and the media and this government, right, it's not getting through to them the truth. All they're saying is, we've got a load of bully boys up there, mass picketing, violence on the picket lines. There's none of that. We're putting the case forward. In this area, you might have seen it in other areas, but I know the press and the media and the television, all they want to look for is somebody on a picket line using a bit of violence. We're not getting the argument across, we're not getting a chance to. So to even talk about principle or why we're here, I mean, we don't even get a chance to get near them to put the case forward.
The day's picketing begins at 4, before the milkman calls. So breakfast is black tea and a cigarette. They've had 2 hours' sleep on the unsympathetic floor of a friendly union office in Tamworth, Staffordshire. But miners are setting off around now for the strike-defying collieries a few miles away. Even when he's on strike, a picket has to work the early shift. They've skirted round the back roads, but the police block every entrance to the colliery they've come to picket. The law can insist that only a token force of 6 strikers man the picket line.
It's all right for us 3 to go down. Right, okay, right.
The law this morning relents. The Kent group goes off to join some 50 others, most of them up from South Wales. The law can afford to be flexible. There are more police to chaperone the busloads of working miners than pickets to jeer them on their way to work.
we're seeking their support as fellow miners, fellow trade unionists. Because no way should any trade unionist cross a picket line. That is something that's inbred in you from the start. I mean, if my dad was alive now and could see what was going on in the industry and see these people crossing picket line, God, I don't know what he'd think.
Well, what's so sacred about a picket line?
Eh?
What's so sacred about
It's a man fighting. It's a man there that you don't just set these up willy-nilly. You think very sincere about them. You know, you bear in mind that we've all got families back at home. We'd sooner be there now. But we're up here now. We set a picket line up so that we say, right, that is, how can I put it? It's a no-go area. It's where you're allowed to stop and talk and explain your position to other people. We're not being allowed that. We've been denied that right. A right that my father fought for and their fathers fought for. And probably half of these chaps that are going through them now, if they could listen to us, I'm sure they'd support us. I'm quite convinced they'd support us. Because they don't want the industry decimated. Because it's their area that's going to go as well as ours.
The workers at Daw Mill Colliery got to work this morning. The overnight shift got home. Daw Mill's a good pit, good work, good bonuses. The pickets' plea for solidarity went unheeded, unheard.
Whether they went into work or not, or whether we were there or not, they didn't even see us anyway, so they probably never even knew there was a picket there. So, obviously they've gone into work because they feel they need to.
They're saying, blow you, Jack, as long as we're all right. This is not a trade union-wise pit. They're not bothered about any. They're not bothered about their own county, even, their own other pits. They're not bothered about Batterson and the other pits. So they're just burying their head in the sand and saying, well, you get on with it. We've got our own pit.
But do you not acknowledge their right to work, their moral right to work, their legal right to work?
We acknowledge it, but also we should be able to talk to them, to ask them to support us. And when we was down there today, you got 4 policemen deep, and you got barricades which you can't get near. Obviously, you can't put your point over, so therefore they don't know what they're doing half the time, because they're not being led, and we're trying to come up here to try and lead them, but we're not getting any support.
I mean, you're on about solidarity, you're on about, is it right that we should try and stop people? Is it morally right? I mean, but is it morally right that we should be stopped from even trying to put the case on? I mean, it's to me, it's immoral, not moral.
There was a time when you didn't need to preach solidarity, still less scream the slogan at busloads of working comrades, scabby bastards. Miners, all miners, from Kent to Cumbria to the Rhondda, were united, us against the rest. And it helped that the rest felt slightly guilty about men who dug in caves for coal.
Go down, down in the dirt and darkness I was raised. Go down. Cut me teeth on a 5-foot timber, held up the roof with me little finger, started me time away in the mine. Go down.
Mass unemployment and the fear of more to come has dulled the special regard once reserved for miners. And within the industry itself, productivity schemes set pits with more to gain against pits with less to lose. That's really what baffles and angers the pickets, the loss of a sense of community in an industry where comradeship matters, used to matter, must matter above all.
Everything we own belongs to Betsanger Colliery. We got it from Betsanger Colliery. OK, we've had our knocks and it's a bloody dirty job and it's a hard job. We owe it to that pit, and we're going to look after it. Everything we own is in that pit. And if we haven't got a pit, we've got nothing.
We all live a stone's throw away from each other. We're all mates. We can have a heated argument one minute and the next minute we're talking, good pals, we're going to have a drink with each other, and that's what we want to keep. It's just the same as what Jimmy said, it's a community.
I don't think it's anything you can explain easily. I think it's something that's, well, bred into you. But, you know, it's a job. And as Alan says, it's the comradeship, not the actual job. It's dirty, dangerous. We know we've got to do it, but it's a living. And that's all we want, is a living. We want to keep our jobs. So we can go out with our mates, have a couple of pints, have a nice holiday somewhere, perhaps in Spain or wherever the other lads want to go, you know, and just maintain our standard of living.
But why is there a right to keep coal mining jobs for your sons and your sons' sons?
No,
forever?
but we're talking for anybody's sons. But when we're saying our son, I think my son has the right to have a job. And I'm saying if it's in mining and he wants to go in mining, all well and good. If it's something attached to mining, all well and good. Because the mining, if there's a mine, it attracts other industries, which gives other people a job. When you close a mine, them industries are wiped out. So there's hundreds of people who think, they don't realise that they're attached to mining. The end product is coal, but it stretches miles back with other industries, small things, even to little bakers, to canteen things. Things in the canteen to massive machines. And this is all the thing, it's a widespread thing. I'm angry because of the threat of losing a pit, losing my job, losing it's a whole community going to go. Not just me, not just a miner, it's all the people around us.
By mid-morning, the men who want to go to work have gone to work. They're a mile underground, unpicketable. Jimmy's transit van takes the group back to Birmingham, along a route that this time owes less to the need to avoid the police, more to their unfamiliarity with the territory.
It's not far up here, I'm sure it's up here.
In Birmingham, there's more talking to be done. If their own union is divided, the Kentish pickets at least can pitch their appeal to the union movement at large.
Well, first of all, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to come forward here today and put our case forward to you. Obviously...
In Birmingham's town hall, the pickets are honoured guests at a branch meeting of NALGO, the local government officers' union. Charlie C.SHEAVILLS, the distinguished speaker.
Most people look at any dispute is they look at their papers. We've seen what they've done to the steel workers. We've seen what they've done to the car workers. And now we're seeing the social services and the coal miners. They might be the last barrier that this government wants to cross. I think once they crush us...
The speech goes down well. £250 is voted for the strike fund. But one NALGO member raises another question of principle. What about democracy? What about a strike ballot?
We're not going to lose this fight.
What is the real difficulty of having a national ballot? Not what the media say the difficulty is, but what is the real difficulty?
I'll tell you for why we're against the ballot at this particular time. Is one, why should any man have the right to go to a ballot box to vote on another man's job? If there is a ballot, it should be for them people that are going to be affected by it, and I am one of them. That's my answer to anybody that talks about ballots. We'll have a ballot when we're ready.
This is a job issue. This is just purely on jobs. We want the right to work. We want the right to live in a community like we do now. We don't want to know desolate districts like there is with the steel workers have, and places like Liverpool. But this is what's going to happen to us. We're fighting for existence.
But Jimmy, there isn't a right to work.
Well, this government is trying to do that. We know that, not to give us the right to work. And these other lads up here, they're our own working comrades, but they are trying to give an issue on vote, and we say they have not the right for us to vote and lose our jobs, lose our pits. Because some of the pits we're picketing now, we try to make them see, like Birch Coppice. They've got a 2-year close-down plan. They're going to close. We said, stop burying your head in the sand, fight for your pit. And thank God there was one pit we had courage to do it.
But others decided, they obviously thought about the issue, and they did vote. And democracy is important to the union movement, isn't it? Important to everybody. They did vote that that's what they wanted to do. Perhaps you may think that they voted not to care about you.
They haven't got the right to vote our pits away. They have not got the right to vote our jobs. Not got the right to say to my son, you cannot have a job. And all the other people around me. They're not going to close my town. They're going to obliterate it. And They're not going to have the right to do that.
Early afternoon. It's getting near the time they change the shifts at Baddesley Colliery, one of the Staffordshire pits that's voted to work on. They'd had a few eggs thrown the night before. There'd been some arrests. Out of the 70 pickets up from Kent and deployed throughout the South Midlands, 2 have got into trouble with the police. But this, whatever you see on the news, is what most picketing is like. Bone-chillingly cold, bone-achingly dull. Ragged jokes with tired policemen, weary jeers at the buses bringing in the workers.
We don't violence, we just want to ask them the questions that we put forward to them, and if they want to go in, they go in.
What you didn't see today was, you know, there was some cars being stopped, and we were getting some good answers from them lads in the car. Answers, you know, which we think we could get a more solid backing from the lads down in that mine there. The buses are a different problem because they're being instructed to tear into the pit, offload the men just like cattle out of a what have you, and you don't get a chance to have a talk to them. And this is what we're here to do, to talk to them lads. And we're not being allowed to do it through the police. The manager is blatant against it.
Yeah, but you know why the police are there. If the police weren't there, 5,000 of you would come up from Kent and stop those people going to work.
How do you know?
Well, wouldn't you?
No.
Wouldn't
you see, you're pre-proposing what we're going to do. This is what we're fighting against. You're saying something, you're just dragging it out of the air. Who says that? There's not 5,000 miners in Kent to start with.
All right.
There's only 2.5, or just two and 2/3.
Yeah.
But this is it. This is what we're trying to say. This is the sort of thing, the question you just asked, is what's happening with the media and everything else. 5,000. The press is saying 5,000 will come up from Kent. There's not 5,000 in Kent. That is a silly little thing like that is what's happening. And of course you've got the media, the people up here in Warwickshire thinking there's 5,000 miners going to come tearing up from Kent. We'll fetch our wives with us and double up. We don't mind that, and I think they'd do it.
OK, suppose 2,500 come up from Kent and 2,500 from Wales, or 1,000 from Yorkshire. I mean, the point is the police are there. Because if they weren't there, you would use what you might think legitimately is your muscle.
We understand that they've got to show a presence, you know, at these situations, because, you know, some people do have short tempers, and, you know, it's just a volatile situation that we've got to steer clear of and do it peacefully.
Do you find your temper getting short sometimes?
No, I don't personally. But I'm a very mild-tempered man.
I remember 1976 when we started the Right to Work campaign, when we came through Birmingham.
7:30 in the evening. The Socialist Workers' Party fills the hall at the Birmingham Friends Meeting House to hear Paul Foot pour scorn on the Home Secretary's views on the rule of law and the right to work.
Or at any other time, and so I read the rest of the speech, and I find, of course, that when Mr. Britton refers to the right to work, he refers to the people who've got it. Lucky enough to have got it. And the question
Trotskyists thrive on evidence of the class struggle, the oppressor state.
Is up to people like Mr. Britton.
When it's his turn to speak, Charlie Sheevils gives his audience what they want to hear.
The system we've got in this country at the present time, I would say, is not near a fascist state. It is a fascist state, and I've seen it. I knew it was coming. I knew a decade ago it was coming, when we got rid of a Tory government, and they are determined to get back at the miners, and once they smash the miners, or they...
Charlie wasn't keen that we filmed this meeting. Was all that stuff about comradeship, conscience, community, just an eloquent disguise for a Marxist motive? To smash the Tories in '84 just as they'd smashed them back in '74? As Ian McGregor, the Coal Board chairman, is reported today as saying, simply a political strike.
We've got to be made to be political.
Are you political, Ian?
Well, I'm interested in politics, yeah, if that's what you mean. But, I'm not a rabid left-winger, if that's what you mean as well.
Well, you went to a rabid left-wing, well, you went to a very extreme left-wing meeting yesterday, Socialist Workers' Party, Trotskyist Party.
Yeah. They're rabid left-wing, are they?
Well, they're Trotskyists.
Oh. Well, I enjoyed Paul's speaking. But that don't make me a rabid left-winger, does it?
Charlie, when he was talking to that meeting, he called this country a fascist state. Do you think we're in a fascist state?
Well, that's where we're headed.
Definitely.
That's where we're headed, aren't we?
What makes you think that?
Well, the first week we came here, we had 4 pickets on Door Mill, and there must have been about 1,200 police there. It's damn ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, if that's not heading towards a police state, well, I don't know what is.
Charlie, the group that we have been with have not been the flying pickets I've read about in the paper. Have you simply given us the most moderate, the least political, the least extreme, the least violent pickets that you could rustle up in 12 hours?
Well, I don't just rustle up pickets, David. They've been here for a week and a half, and roughly 70 men in this area, and they've been here, you know, they went home last weekend and they come back again Sunday, and no doubt they'll be back again next week. So it's not something I've rustled up. I mean, I could have picked you another 6 and you would have said, well, you know, are they average? I mean, what do you, you know, what are you asking of me? I mean, all I do is pick 6 people, and you're saying, no, are they militant or are they not? I mean, what do we call the word militant? I think in this particular issue, the word militancy doesn't come into it. It's an issue that's so strong on the pit closure one that we are in all sorts of people who I work with in my industry, people that have surprised me, that I never thought would stand up and fight for their jobs, that have come forward and been perhaps some of the first to come forward.
It's a measure of how times have changed that Charlie's surprised at the support he's got. Once upon a time, solidarity was the miner's birthright. It wasn't something you had to beg for on a picket line. A picket line itself wasn't something you had to defend. Coal itself didn't need defending in an age unhaunted by the spectre of nuclear energy. Coal was power, and the men who dug it had it. Back in 1974, one of today's pickets, J.BRANNON, was at work on a placard that didn't beg for work, but demanded a better wage for it. Miners hadn't begged since 1926.
So I talked to my father tells me about 1920. He went through it with 15 children in the family. He was one of 15 children. And he went through it. He stuck it out to the end. I know, okay, they didn't go back. They didn't win as regards that. They won a moral issue. But we're here, we're morally right, and we know it, and that's why we're going to fight. And like we said before, we're going to fight to the end. And that's all we can say about it. We're going to fight.
Why is it a moral issue? Why is it not just an issue about jobs?
It's a job, of course it's a moral. It's a right of every person to be able to give them a job, the right to work. Of course it's moral. It's immoral not to be able to give them the right to work.
I'm going to the police station.
12 hours on the road with the flying pickets leave you not so much with a sense of threat, the flexing of some giant industrial muscle, more with a sense of reluctant nostalgia. The talk was of rights that grandfathers had won, rights qualified now by laws and circumstance, of the powers that fathers had gained, powers dwindling with the power of coal itself, of their sons' entitlement to the ancestral inheritance of work. It's almost as much a battle for their past as a fight for their future.
We didn't go into this dispute lightly. We sat down and thought about it. We knew it was going to come, and all my members from my area in Kent, they knew when they come up here right from the first day, they would not be up here for a week or 2 weeks. They set their minds that they had a job to do, and until it was completed, they would not go back. And yes, we are prepared for a long, drawn-out stay in this area and in other areas until the job's done. We won't go away until we convince our fellow workmates that our case is a good case, and until we convince them, we will not go away. If people think in higher places that we're going to go away, well, I'm afraid they're living in cloud cuckoo land, because perhaps they don't understand that this is our last chance to fight for our rights, for a job in the coal mining industry, jobs for us, jobs for our children, and jobs for people that can't get a job in other places of work.
You've been up here then how long? roughly?
It's 10 days, 11 days, is it? 10, 11 days.
And how much sleep are you getting?
Well, I had 7 hours last week.
7 hours for the whole week?
For the whole week. I've managed to grab extra this week, so it's been a better week for me personally.
Well, how many hours have you had this week?
I had 1 last night, 6 the night before, and a couple the night before that.
If this thing drags on, is not resolved, what are you all going to do? I mean, you can't just go on with 1 hour's sleep a night indefinitely. Are you going to?
Why can't
Well, can you?
we? We're here to do the job, and we're going to stop until it's done.
Well, if
We're
we
not-
don't, we'll have as much... Sorry, Carl.
Go on.
If we don't, bloody, we'll have as much sleep as we like, won't we? About 15 hours a bleeding day we know what to do, looking at 4 walls, like about 4 million other people are. That is what's going to happen if we don't.
We're fighting for our lives, really. That's all we're fighting for, a livelihood, and for our children's livelihood. Because that's all we know, really, is mining.